Orb presents The Terrible Secret of Turtle Bay.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Orb, Episode 1, The Terrible Secret of Turtle Bay.
Yeah, and this is the pilot episode of The Venture Brothers. This originally aired in February, on February 16th of 2003. Mostly written and produced in 2000 or so. And this is the worst episode of the show, Gary.
Oh, by quite a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, this was, I was talking about doing this show with my girlfriend, who I now live with, and she's like, oh, would that be fun for us to watch together? And at first I was like, yeah. And then I said, well, I'm going to watch them and then watch them with a commentary afterwards, so that won't be that fun.
Yeah.
And then the scheduling didn't work out, and I'm really glad that she and I didn't watch this one, because it's not super good, and I think that she would not want to watch more.
Yeah.
It gets better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the creators are saying this is the best episode of the series or anything.
No.
But it gets better shockingly quickly. The next episode has a bunch of good, funny jokes in it.
Yes.
This is more of a curiosity than anything, and it is not in canon.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, characters act differently. Their relationships have not yet been established. The look is entirely different and bad in a way that makes you forget that the rest of season 1 actually does look pretty good.
Yeah. And then it just gets better looking.
Yes.
As it goes.
Yeah.
The reasons, so just real quick, as I find trivia, I'm going to pop it in real quick. Just, Turtle Bay, the terrible secret of Turtle Bay, that is where the UN is located.
Yeah.
I know that's very common, trivia, knowing where the UN is located is some real grade school.
It is
stuff.
Yeah. But playing up that weird ass neighborhood name for the mystery of it is a time-honored tradition. That's a thing that happens in the Dark Tower series that Stephen King does, Yeah.
So the reason why this does not look as good is because, or one of the reasons, is because it was animated in Flash.
Right.
And they talk at length in the book about how that is difficult, and on the commentary, basically kind of kludging it together. They wanted to have these beautiful painterly backgrounds like 60s cartoons did, and they succeeded at that. But having them edit together and work on film was a little bit of a challenge.
Yes.
In addition to just not having their process taken care of.
Yeah, there's a real mismatch between what they are attempting to do and what Flash is capable of. If they were making something that Flash lent itself to, it would probably end up looking better, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But they're, attempting to do a lot of these really hand-drawn, pretty frame by frame kind of things. And that's just not something that Flash does really well. Flash is a lot of it's keyframe animated and stuff like that, or done with puppet rigging.
If you would like to make Radiskull, use Flash. If you would like to not make Radiskull, do not use Flash.
Yeah.
This is not just on Flash though. This is also down to them being some kids doing their first pilot, first solo pilot. Obviously, Public had worked on Tick and such, and not having processes. There's a lot. Public talks about the difficulties of kind of assuming he could do this sort of thing because he was a storyboard artist, and different animators and artists being like, okay, what does Brock look like in profile, and him being like,
just take a guess. I don't care if it looks weird. We need to get this done.
Yeah, we got to go. What do the boys look like from the front? Well, and this is all stuff that eventually would become amazingly consistent.
Yes,
but I found reading about this incredibly relatable. The idea of assuming you can do something and then doing it and just being like, oh, there's a billion questions I didn't even think to ask.
It took an hour to write. I figured it would take an hour to read.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
I mean, it's also the detail that blew my fucking mind is that this took 3 months to make.
Yeah.
Which in animation terms is a really, really short time. I used to work at a marketing company that primarily did animation, and for a 2-minute video, the process would take 2 months.
6 years. Oh.
No. It just but with no experience and also a very inaccurate idea of what your competencies are, to come out and do this in 3 months is still really impressive.
Yeah. Tapping, almost exclusively just friends and families.
Yes.
Family, some work friends, because obviously Public had worked in animation, but a lot of just his friends and family did voices and such. The exceptions for the voice work being amateur are Rusty, Brock, and Dean, where they have other people, and these will also change, or Dean changes. Yeah. Right? It's not Dean. It's not the same Dean in this one.
Oh shit! You're right.
Is it?
Yeah. I believe it is not. I think they found Santa Claus after this.
Santa Claus.
Yes.
Santa Claus is evil cousin.
Yeah. That's a real fun story when you read it in the book. They're like, we had a couple of people, and then somebody just suggested Santa Claus, and Public just talked to him, and he said hello, like, oh my god, you're Dean. And then just brought him in.
He's the part he's born to play, baby. The writing and initial work on this did not have Doc Hammer. Doc Hammer was brought in to do editing and sound stuff on this. And it was literally them meeting at a party and him just being like, hey, this sounds really cool if you ever need any help. And Doc Hammer was on tour with his band. And Jackson Public just kept texting him like, hey, do you know this, Quark? Do you know this software? Do you know how to edit?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I can help with that. And then when he came back, he was in. So he did not help write it, but he did help put it together, and he will be involved in the writing and everything more holistically moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny listening to the commentary and then also reading the book, because it's kind of like, it sounds like Doc Hammer was just being polite, and then a monkey paw finger curled down. He just got harassed into being part of this. But Hammer and Public get along really well, and in fact you can tell just by hearing them speak naturally to each other as friends that
absolutely
this show is filled with two people who just groups of two characters who have a banter back and forth. You listen to the two of them talk and you're like, oh, each of those pairings is in one way or another these two guys.
Yeah. And I love this is a show on the network I'm going to take notes on, because I don't always take notes, but I'm taking notes. And one of the notes I have for the commentary is just fun, goofy boys.
Yes.
Because listening to the commentary, these guys are so obviously friends. It comes through in the show, but it feels really good to feel that confirmed. And even down to individual jokes and voices and stuff, it was these guys working in a space late at night doing shtick. Trying to make each other laugh, coming up with these little scenes and characters and stuff, and then those just literally made it onto the show.
Yeah.
The voice of the Monarch is what they guessed the Black Manta from Super Friends would sound like. Even exactly that. So they, that is so refreshing and feels so good.
And I mean, to be self-absorbed here for just a second, not to make everything about us, but looking at that professional relationship and seeing how fun that was and what they made out of it. I don't know, that's squad goals, life goals. That
I hope that someday we'll be friends.
We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. It's fine.
We'll get there eventually. I'm guessing decade 2 is when we really come to our own.
Yeah.
One of us has to have a kid so we can get some uncle energy.
This is all prologue. Yeah.
They had to extract a baby from my desiccated balls. So that friendship really comes through, as we mentioned. Even though this does not fully have the voice, there are parts, they talk about this in the book a little defensively, oh, I still really like the pilot. It's not what we ultimately wanted to do. I can't go with them on that. I actually don't like the pilot. I think it's really interesting though, and there are a lot of weird generality kind of differences to the tone of the rest of the series that I want to point out that are just interesting in retrospect.
Yeah.
There are some dead ends. Doc's pill thing is really underlined in this. He's taking pills a lot.
Yeah.
And he takes pills later, but he talks about them, and there are jokes and there's context and other people remark on it. Here, the joke is kind of what if your dad was a pill popper? Which is a funny joke.
You're right.
Don't get me wrong. That's what a hilarious scenario.
The thing is, it's relatable.
Yeah, what a chuckle up. But it's presented kind of on its lonesome
Yeah.
in this first episode.
Yeah. Good number of those things. And not to camp out too much on it, but like, I don't know, some like weird jokes about race. the villain in this, not necessarily the most it's not a decision that I think anyone.
I was gonna say it was the most culturally sensitive, but now that you bring it up, maybe it is not necessarily the most.
Need to go back through and change some of my notes here, eliminate control F and replace on all words praise, sensitive, groundbreaking. The portrayal is not the way that they or anybody else would immediately go for it today.
Yeah. And we talked about this a lot at last episode, 2003.
2003 or even like 2000.
Like 2000. I was fucking 20.
Yeah.
Like I was a baby. That's half my life ago. Like this is, and the commentary, they say like, hey, this was a racist voice. Yeah. And I think that they have a good attitude about it where they're not like flagellating
right
themselves about it. They just like are like, yeah, this was bad. And then quietly moved on from it.
Right.
Which, again, we heaped some praise last episode. I think that is a really good posture.
Yes.
For when you step on a time rake, a poorly aged rake.
Yes.
The music in this episode is also done by J.G. Thirlwell and from J.G. Thirlwell's various bands, even though it was not originally composed for the episode. These are things pulled from albums that they had done with the band Fetus and some other projects, and but all used with permission. And they had given the creators, Public and Hammer, tracks without vocals.
Yeah, like different mixes,
versions.
stems, and things like that for them to use. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought for my entire life, up until last week or so, that it was J.G. Thrillwell was the
that's pretty good.
Name.
That would fit in with like the rest of the names that are going on here.
That's why I thought it. And my brain just flipped those letters every single time I read it for about 20 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, so you snapped to grid on what the cooler option was. I think that is a perfectly understandable thing to do.
Yeah, J.G. Thirlwell. Thrillwell is way cooler than Thirlwell. Thirlwell, it sounds like a forgotten stroke. Or a forgotten member of Sonic Youth. Like both those bands that have weird rich white kid names in them. Like that's what it sounds like to me.
Yes.
Whereas J.G. Thrillwell sounds like a good stage name for a Venture Brothers soundtrack.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's good that they got this music because, Thrillwell, I'm only going to ever call him that now, went on to become the musical.
Seinfeld. I passed it on.
Yep. It's contagious. No, but he would go on to become the musical supervisor, for any of the original stuff. It set the tone for this. And the music is, good. It's that nice kind of like raucous, anything can happen jazz.
Yeah, universally excellent on this show, I think. So we're going to get into it, peppering in trivia and such throughout. In the episode, we get a cold open in Japan, in Tokyo. A man who we're not introduced to yet, his name is a joke, is receiving acupuncture. His assistant comes in and tells him that Dr. Venture will be demonstrating a new invention.
Right. And we establish right away that henchmen are disposable because instead of reacting to this by being pleased, the villain here throws one of the needles at the henchman. But no, he didn't kill him. He actually did distance acupuncture. I think this is a good. It's a good joke because he gets back up like after a second. You think he's dead, and he says, "Oh, you fixed that kink in my arm, and now I don't want to smoke anymore."
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah.
They does this. This joke even is a good joke. It's even a little bit dated. I feel like acupuncture was a little bit more exotic.
Yeah.
And weird.
I don't think that it was covered under a lot of people's like Flex accounts at this point.
Yes. Yeah. Originally, this was not going to be Otaku Senzuri. This is going to be a character named Mysterious Arab. But 9/11 happened, and they're like, "Whoa,
can't do that.
Slow it down."
And that's not the only change they had to make because of 9/11 either.
Yeah. No, there's a later one that's a big one. But yeah, this is again, the same way you would see, I feel like in Simpsons episodes or what have you, would have kind of a generic terrorist.
Yeah.
And they might be a person of Arab descent. This was bad, but more culturally acceptable before Arab Americans became the widespread target of hate crimes and in the wake of 9/11.
It was a trope, right? It's like just an airplane, you had like an Arab guy with a bomb, and that is wildly insensitive and was probably it was shitty at the time. It's just the way that it was the shorthand, right?
Yeah.
To very quickly communicate what was happening.
Yeah, planes getting hijacked and such.
Yeah.
So this is obviously better.
Well, I mean, just like, let's make him a ninja. It's there are other aspects of it. The fact that he is a Japanese man who is a furtive masturbator is a little.
I don't mind that at all. Yeah. I think that but the fact that he's it's the accent really that I think is the most racist.
The accent is definitely top of the heap there.
And this is this character is basically from the Pitch book. There was a ever-present ninja, which was a concept they had originally, and I'm kind of glad they worked it out of their system with the pilot, because I don't think it's again, that really smacks of the year 2000. Ninjas versus pirates,
real ultimate power kind of stuff.
Yes.
And also like his design is different than the other stuff that would eventually get through there. They make some notes like this guy is drawn kind of in Jackson Publick's natural cartooning style, and he is angular and elongated in ways that the other characters are not.
Yeah, he looks weird.
Yeah.
We get our title theme and title sequence. The song remains the same, but the title sequence is a little different early on here. And it's one of the great title sequences.
No, it's amazing.
In kind of a general.
Just wonderful
so
motion
good.
design, awesome, just stylistic, just snippets of characters. That had to be created. Like this was all done full cloth. They were not drawing from other stuff like from the rest of the series. But yeah, it's like introductions of all the characters and really high paced, high energy, matching the energy of the music, and wonderful like pop 70s graphic design. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of monocolor, big bold colors and such. They also use a lot of unused characters.
Yeah.
So the original concept art for Molotov Cocktease is the lady near the end of this, and that it's good to use every part of the every part of the pitch book for this.
Yeah.
We open on the Venture compound on these awesome hover bikes, and I could tell because I could hear them hovering.
Oh yeah.
And these these are directly from the art, and these are a mainstay throughout the series, which I love.
Yeah, I love how like bulbous and awkward they are.
They look great.
Yeah, and the sound they make is generally wonderful. They also go very slow. So I just like the idea of these two little dipshit kids just puttering around on them. And they're going around the compound looking for their dog Scamp. And it's real low stakes stuff right now. You have your plucky kids who immediately come across as, children's mystery book characters. It's like, oh no, the mystery of the missing dog. Let's go talk to Pop.
Yeah, there's not a lot to them at this point, and they also the way they're drawn is not great. Hank's ears are ridiculous. On this, and Scamp would cease to become a major fixture of the Venture. He shows up once in flashback later.
Yes, but this does establish kind of the dynamic between them. Like Hank is the one who suggests asking their dad, "Hey, where's our dog?" And Dean says, "Ooh, I thought I was the smart one." Yeah.
Dean would get a little less confident as time would go on.
Yes.
This is also almost directly matches the initial comic for this, where they're about to solve the mystery on the compound, and has the Hank saying, "Ma Venture didn't raise no fools," and Dean correcting him, "We don't have a mom, Hank."
I love how long the silence is after that. Them just standing there, like just letting that sink in, or remembering, oh yeah, we don't have moms.
Introducing in the pilot one of the absolute central mysteries of the series.
Where the hell did these kids come from?
Yeah, so something that only gets answered,
In the last
it gets
episode.
answered in a not totally definitive way, like a way
Right.
that is likely, but is an intentional, unsatisfying answer because all of the answers the fans came up with, that the creators did on purpose, like all these little hints,
Red
and
herrings,
stuff,
yeah.
of kind of baiting them. Yeah, red herrings. They referred to it. The creators referred to it as the mommy bomb, dropping the mommy bomb.
Yeah.
Um,
So again, establishing this dynamic, they go and they pass by Brock, who is hosing down their super plane, the X1. He is shirtless in ridiculously short cutoffs and listening to a parody Led Zeppelin song that Public and Doc Hammer composed called Hobbit Ride, parentheses, to the Midnight Sun of Valhalla.
Yep. Really good. Brock is basically established pretty well. Out of all the characters in this, I think he comes off the best in the pilot, or at least the most true
Yeah.
to himself.
He would soften more from this later on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but as the series goes on,
Yes.
even like this doesn't feel that different than Brock in episode 1.
Right.
And then, eventually he kind of loosens up a little bit. He's got his cutoff pants and they're unzipped down to like the second button or whatever. And he doesn't have a big pubic thatch. And then he also doesn't have a hairy chest, which is not how I pictured Brock Sampson. And originally he did have a hairy chest, but they found it hard to animate.
Yeah.
So they shaved it.
There were a couple of times that they did this, like the original like costumes from the Monarch henchmen were a little bit fuzzy. It's hard to animate fuzzy stuff.
We got to talk about how garbage the Monarch and his crew look.
Yeah. So Dr. Venture radios Brock and says, "Hey, we have a discovery. Remember those remains that we stole from Morocco? Turns out they're robot bones. You were right."
Yeah. He says they weren't dinosaur bones.
Oh, yeah.
They were robot bones, which this is never followed up on. And I really like the idea of robot bones. Because they're bones that have like circuitry and shit on them. The idea of a robot having a robotic skeleton.
Yes.
That was real good. And there are little bits where the dynamic changes. Like Brock calls him boss.
Yes.
Boss, don't care. It's like, that's not really going to happen. He hears something banging around in the X1. We cut over. There's also a jarring cut too. They would get better editing here. The boys go to see their dad, who's popping pills, of course, and they see that dad has found Scamp and removed his skin. And this is the first joke in the pilot that makes me laugh.
Oh yeah,
because Scamp is still incredibly happy.
Yep.
He's doing really good.
He's in this little chamber being like a good, like a fun, good little dog.
He's thriving.
And
he's
been set free.
Doc's explanation is very funny to me. You like pretty girls, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, how do you think they get so pretty? Cosmetics.
So consider Scamp here an important part of the chain in making more pretty girls.
Their subjects keep dying before they can test all their makeup.
Yep.
And Scamp won't die because he has no skin.
And it's like the fact, just the way, the fact that this is how they introduce Rusty, like this is how they introduce Dr. Venture, doing, I mean, like shorthand for the most evil thing possible, like
skinning a dog,
skinning like kids' dogs. Like this is
his kids' dogs.
Yeah, it's a dog with a name. Yeah,
his dog.
His dog. He buys the food for this dog.
Yeah, it's not an anonymous dog.
Right.
It's also not like a guinea pig or something. It's not a lab rat.
Right.
It's the family pet.
Yeah.
And then, the early kind of signs of this being a funny show is the fact that the dog is fine and happy.
Yes.
That's the swerve. It could have just been very dark.
Right.
And it is dark, but it's also, there's a twist to it.
Well, and the kids are immediately on board with it. He persuades them with that incredibly weak argument.
Yeah. Yep. So they hear a sound from the hangar that means trouble. And we head over to Brock fighting a mummy who stowed away, which is, pretty great. Just a freestanding mummy.
Yep.
And this ends up starting something, again, that feels very Venture Brothers to me, definitely first season, of a villain attempting to give a speech or engage in Johnny Quest bullshit.
Yeah.
And Brock cutting him off.
Right.
And him just being like, whoa, wait a minute. No, like no fair.
I wasn't ready. So,
Right from the beginning, they're introducing the heroics that these characters engage with are play.
Right.
To people, and the Venture brothers on various levels, or at least Doc and Brock, are over it.
Yeah.
Doc is world weary about it. Brock is brutally efficient about it.
Right.
They're not really playing the same game that the world around them is playing.
And I mean, and that would be, that would go on to be one of the main conflicts, is different groups and different people within those groups having like varying levels of commitment to the bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's good stuff. But like he beats the mummy to death and then pisses on him, which is, Dr. Venture's like, hey, did you have to do that in front of my kids? Brock's like, you have to defile a mummy completely or else they come back to life. You know that.
Yeah.
And you figure, okay, that goes pretty far. They used to go, like the original idea was for him to go further.
Yes.
But like this was specifically in the commentary, they say this was before Adult Swim was airing Family Guy. And I guess because Family Guy made them enough money and was also like way more transgressive than this, that was like a point after which they could get a little bit more daring with the stuff that they did.
I think it was just the raunch factor.
Yeah.
If you look at what Adult Swim had done before this, like, your Space Ghost, your Harvey Birdmans,
your Brack Show,
Brack Show, those are all like straddling the line. Like Adult Swim is a weird construct.
Yeah.
It being on the Cartoon Network, like, the network Johnny Bravo built, and then eventually just turning into this place for incredibly dark, subversive comedy.
Yeah.
And now, eventually it would turn into, they would show, things that were more transgressive and violent. You end up with like Korgoth of Kilgaria or whatever that, the barbarian show
or
is.
You
That's
get
very funny.
Mr. Pickles,
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even like, Tim and Eric or Eric Andre or something.
Yeah.
Where like real people are being affected by this stuff. It took a while for them to get there.
Yeah.
In this scene, they end up having the boys react to everything. So they do a commentary instead of showing Brock do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good. Like initially they showed him curb stomping this mummy, who isn't a mummy. It's just a guy. He's wrapped up in ace bandages and toilet paper.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a person who gets killed.
Right.
Kids. So we cut over to the Monarch. He's explaining his plan. He's going to launch a fake meteor into the Venture compound to ambush Dr. Venture. And Dr. Venture's unquenchable scientific curiosity will bring him to inspect the meteor.
I love how little he seems to know Dr. Venture.
Yes.
Or just how oblivious he is in general.
Well, and this is also, again, kind of remnants of the pitch book where Dr. Venture he's always in his father's shadow. Here, people don't seem to know that he's in his shadow. Like, he got invited to this thing.
Right.
This is kind of setting up, this thing ultimately would be just kind of part of his reputation as that he's a shit scientist. The Monarch and the henchmen look like garbage, I think. Their initial costumes are very bad.
Yep.
Just really, really weird. Like the Monarch has like a feather boa, kind of like this poofy, floofy kind of like moment around his neck.
Yeah.
I just, I don't really like the Monarch in this. There aren't a lot of good jokes.
No.
For the Monarch in this. It's before he finds his voice. Like, absolutely.
And they're leaning on stuff that would be like a dead end for him. Like they do 3 separate jokes that are him not understanding what monarch butterflies are, which is just there's not a lot of headroom on that one, let's say. Yeah. Also, his helmet is weird and stretchy and amorphous and looks different from shot to shot. Like,
yeah, he's all over the place.
Right.
It looks bad.
Yeah.
So he mentioned this is the first appearance of Dr. Girlfriend, who launches the rocket. Dr. Girlfriend also looks really hard. It's like really hard to look at. Yeah. Very elongated face in this. And this is Public doing a Harvey Fierstein impersonation.
Yes.
This was supposed to, Dr. Girlfriend, that, they talk about how they weren't sure that she would, they're kind of surprised she became as much of a character as she did. The idea of Dr. Girlfriend is a name joke, and then just having that voice is a joke.
Right.
And that was really, kind of enough of it as kind of a background character, but it ended up being much more so.
Yeah, but the rocket with the meteor is launched and it lands in the venture compound as the X1 is about to take off. Brock says, "Hey, do you want to go check that out?" And Rusty's like, "No, let's not waste any time. Let's go." This is a problem for the henchmen inside, because the meteor landed with the door side down.
Yeah, and that's a cute joke. That was specifically the joke that got Doc Hammer on board.
Yes.
This little bit where Doc Venture is ignoring the meteor, it's very pill related. Mm-hmm. He pops a bunch of pills and he has paranoid eyes. He's like, "No, let's go!" Like he's all hyped up.
Right.
And it had like a flashback in an alternate series where Dr. Venture was just a joke about his pill addiction. Mm-hmm. And I got so bummed out. Like him, dropping his diet pills like it's something a sophisticate does, later is so much better than this, of it just being an excuse for him to do whatever the plot demands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, like him being a pillhead, not an awful lot of headroom on that. Like the fact that they were willing to discard that to like give him opportunities for both better depth and better jokes. Is a good thing, and that's put into sharp relief by like going back and watching this after having watched the rest of the series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the X1 lands at the UN. On the plane, the boy, Dr. Venture, discovers a prank that the boys had done where they had drawn a picture of their dad with stink lines.
The stink lines and everything.
And this is also like early on, the boys were kind of pranky.
Yeah.
This would also go away. Mm-hmm. This relationship, this antagonistic relationship would kind of get backgrounded.
Yeah.
And at the UN, a weird thing is the ambassador from the UN has hair that, to me, feels like it is definitely referencing the Green Goblin.
Oh yeah, they mentioned that on
Spider-Man.
They mentioned that on the wiki when you look there and under the pop culture connections.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same voice or anything, but it's definitely Green Goblin hair.
Yeah, it's got that gray streak in it. And he speaks with a fun, just like, where in continental Europe are you supposed to be from?
Yeah, Dr. Von Schuhl.
Dr. Von Schuhl.
Von Schuhl. And there's an alligator inside the jet. Things are constantly stowing away on the jet.
This just keeps happening. Yeah. Oh man. And Brock kills him with a knife. This is Brock's signature weapon, his K-bar Bowie knife. In the original script, Brock was supposed to gut the alligator, and then he says, "Oh, the alligator was pregnant," so he goes and gets a gas can and lights it on fire. That was considered to be too much. Also, alligators don't get pregnant, so that is a funny joke.
Pregante. And they don't show that. They just show people watching and reacting. And they had to tone this down quite a bit, so much so that Brock could be covered with blood, but his knife could not.
Right. Super weird.
Yep. As they're getting out, the kids have to stay in the X1. They head into the science, the UN, the convention here. Dr. Venture tells Brock to go take care of the kids here. There is a fun background joke here. They talk about how they just drew these interesting characters for the background, and they decided to include Tycho Brahe.
Yeah, with his gold nose.
With his weird gold nose, who died of being too polite to get up and pee.
Which is itself rude.
Yeah, I guess
you're going to ruin a party to die.
I'm chewing on that for a second.
Yeah. You're right.
Like, is there a party that, like, I'm trying to think if there's a party I got invited to where I would hate it enough to where I would, like, I'm going to die anyway. Like, let's say I have a month to live.
Yeah.
And I could spend that time like with my loved ones, or like, rereading my favorite books, or just eating incredible food.
God, whatever.
Or I could try to get invited to parties by my enemies and hope that I die during the party to fuck it up.
So, I mean, you would want to know the person enough to understand what's important to them. So, like, work your way into somebody's wedding who you hate. And then, like, right as they're about to like cut the cake or whatever, you just die as dramatically as possible, and all of a sudden the day is about you.
Not the cake, dude. Like, does anybody have any reason why this couple should not be wed? And then I just lit it all out, and then
when I die, you all go away.
Yeah, I just release my like absolute like death bowel. like at that moment and just clear the fucking room. Like go out like a fucking boss.
Yep.
You know, some teen is TikToking it. I become famous posthumously, like Van Gogh.
Owned.
Yeah. They so Brock goes off to go take care of the boys.
Yep. There's no tail at this con anyway.
And clinging to the ceiling is the ever-present ninja. The ambassador introduces him. The suspicious Asian person here is Otaku Senzuri.
Yeah.
Otaku, as Metal Gear has taught us, means a fan of something. And Senzuri, which I did not know until doing research for this, is a Japanese slang for a masturbator. It means 1,000 strokes.
Yeah. So male masturbator is 1,000 strokes. Female masturbator is 10,000 strokes if you're being inefficient. But
you said that initially. I was like, maybe this is true. And then I was like, oh no, it's a joke. He's talking about how hard it is to get women off.
No, that literally is like, that's a,
oh really?
yes.
Oh, it's not Joe. Okay.
Yeah, that's the actual slang. No, I would not have made a joke about like men be orgasming like this, but women be orgasming like this. That
like it is oftentimes true that it's real easy for a dude to
right. Yeah.
But I did not realize there was separate like gendered slang terms for masturbator in Japan.
I mean, according to the wiki, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Good for them on aggressively gendering a denigrating term for self-pleasure, something literally everybody does and shouldn't be ashamed of.
Good for them.
Yes. But this guy's name is Atel, right? If you know what these mean. I knew what otaku meant. I did not know what senzuri meant.
Me either.
Yes. But yes, they know that this guy has, they know this guy's got a bad voice. Basically, like stepping on every rake that you can, switching your R's and L's, talking without articles, stuff like that.
Yes. The ambassador leads away. There's just kind of another weird rough cut.
Yeah.
Here, the Dr. Venture is doing more pills. We cut over to the Monarch riding coach. On an airline to get to New York.
He had to buy a separate seat for his wings.
Yeah, I have a note of that as well. I think that's cute. The boys, they're playing astronaut using this Dixie cup with the hotel bidet, just having fun.
Yeah,
they want to have an adventure, and their adventure, as we'll find out soon, is to trap themselves in a fridge, basically. Which I really love.
To play submarine. They've got no sense of self-preservation. It's like the scream a pillar. These kids. Yeah.
And Senzuri emerges from a vent over Dr. Venture and runs a string down and drips poison along it. This is a reference to the character Aki in You Only Live Twice.
Yes. Also
Bond
done.
Movie.
Yep. The Bond movie where he goes to Japan and does horrible offensive yellowface that would be parodied later on in the series. Dr. Venture would do kind of the same thing. This poison drip thing, I forgot that it was in You Only Live Twice. It's also done in Grosse Pointe Blank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen You Only Live Twice.
No.
I've never seen Grosse Pointe Blank either.
No.
So to me, like Grosse Pointe Blank, they did the terrible Secret of Turtle Bay poison trick.
Grosse Pointe Blank's good. It's a good movie.
Yeah. As I have heard.
Yeah.
That is good, I believe. The boys ruin his plan, though. The poison is about to drip into his mouth. The boys open the door and it blows it away.
Yes.
And then they get inside the metal case that the invention was stored in to get in the tub to die. And
playing submarine.
Playing submarine to die. They close the case and Senzuri takes it, thinking he's found the device floating in a bathtub. This is goofy and shticky. Mistaken briefcases. Like we'd get above this kind of humor in the future.
Yes. But he opens up the case and the boys are, shocked to find out that they're no longer in the bathroom. They're also shocked that there is a ninja who is apparently kidnapping them. They attempt to do their judo, which is
attempt to deploy the JUDO.
Yep.
Should we deploy the JUDO?
Ixnay on
and
the
those
Udo
ineffectual chops are very funny.
They're so slow. It's just like gently placing the end, like the blade of your palm on his shoulder.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think that's very cute.
Oh man.
Yeah. But Senzuri gives him a neck pinch.
Yes.
Knocks him out in the alley, and they get robbed a couple of ne'er-do-wells walk by and take their communicator watches and such. Something I was very pleased to see is that Rusty is having a dream of himself as a fetus, which is introducing the foreshadowing thread that runs throughout the season. This super washed out red, him as a baby kind of thing, as this will continue and develop as we go on.
Yes.
Similar this Cassandra Nova subplot that happens with Rusty. I love that it shows up in the pilot. Like they knew at least a little what they were doing.
Yeah, they were laying track for it. Brock wakes him up and Rusty says, "Oh, I was in the mommy place." So he has this dream quite frequently.
We're now on to Act 2, and this was the act that was rewritten.
Yeah.
The Adult Swim CEO was like, "This is meandering and dumb, like rewrite Act 2." And it was just the boys hanging out in New York.
Right. Like doing outdated jokes about how dangerous New York is, which even at the time, it wasn't. The fact that they run into a hooker on Times Square is even like a throwback at this point. Because of awful things Rudy Giuliani did, but yeah, like that is not a thing you can spend a lot of time in your pilot doing, is like bad cliche shtick about New York.
Yeah. So they wake up, wowie zowie, we must have been on one of those benders Brock talks about. Their comm watches are gone. Right. Unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, the Monarch rolls up in a taxi and tries to pay him with a IOU. He goes, "What is this?" He goes, "An IOU for your life," and then darts him. Yeah. Which is funny. A super villain doing petty stuff like that to get out of paying cab fare is fun.
Paying $50 for cab fare. Yeah.
I also really like the delivery when they look over and like, "It's a giant butterfly." Yeah. And then somebody, no, cry me. That's not a butterfly. It's a guy who's always hating dad. That's really fun.
Like hating is the active verb that they chose for that.
It's real good. It's also, this is the first appearance when Super Runaway. And I think about Super Runaway all the time and use that in real life. I neglected to mention it before. I want to give a quick shout out to Dean's delivery on U-nited Nations. Like every time he says, he's like the U-nited Nations. Like every single time he does it like it's a commercial for New York if New York was the Old West. It's really weird. From the Grand Canyon to the U-nited Nations.
Very good. Way into it. They run away before Brock can see them. They're still outside the hotel. They run to the left. Brock walks out the front door and heads over to the right. So Brock is trying to track them using the satellite watches, but he just contacts the thieves who took them. So he's on his way to go deal with them. There's some shtick down in the subway when the Monarch is chasing the boys. Monarch is grabbed by a policeman for hopping a turnstile. And then in the resulting scuffle, he gets dragged away when a door closes on his wings. He slams into the side of a tunnel. Yes.
Yeah. Like that's a way that people lose arms.
Yes.
In real life. But this is all, not particularly great. Not a lot of jokes here. There's like a weird little bit where his dart bounces off the policeman's badge.
Yeah.
And it just feels like this weird waste of time. Like, we go back to the UN and we get the first introduction of Pete White and Billy Quizboy, even though they're unnamed.
Right.
Public talks about how you would just draw people and just try to make interesting background characters.
Yes.
So they had like albino and syphilitic.
Or hydrocephalic.
Yeah, there we go.
Syphilitic would be different. That'd be a different.
That's later.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's what happened. That gold nosed guy's nose.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's scary. They talk about originally Billy Quizboy was going to have progeria, and then they decided like, who wants to joke about that? That's really sad.
Yeah.
And I just it made me think like, do you not think hydrocephalitis?
Yeah,
it's sad. Like
hydrocephaly. Yeah,
that's sad. I mean, if you want to have a sad off, like it's possible progeria is sadder.
Yeah.
But the idea of drawing the line between hydrocephaly and progeria is very funny to me.
You got to feather the throttle is the thing.
Yeah.
But they're presented here. It's very strange. Like Pete White's voice is mostly there. Billy Quizboy is not necessarily. He's not as lispy. And they don't seem to know Rusty. They don't seem to know Dr. Venture. They kind of speculate that Dr. Venture and Brock must be an item. You know, and both of them later on, when they're actually introduced, they're like Venture Brothers fanboys, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They have and they're also friends.
Yes.
They knew each other in college and such. This is also the first appearance of Professor Impossible. He ends up showing his stretchy powers in the background of a scene.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. It's actually the first superpower that's demonstrated on the show.
Yeah.
It's the only hint in this episode that there are superpowers about.
Yes.
You know, it's not just super science and spy and espionage stuff. Really interesting choice.
Yeah.
To make Professor Impossible, because just by looking at him, he doesn't necessarily look like a Reed Richards XB.
No.
He could be, but he doesn't. You know, he's plausibly deniably like just a professor.
Yeah, I was unsure even if this was supposed to be Professor Impossible until I saw the stretching going on, because he's not voiced by Stephen Colbert,
or any of the voice actors who would go on to voice
Professor
Impossible.
Yeah.
So this is a peace. This is at the UN. This is a peace invention kind of convention, and Professor Impossible demonstrates his ozone repairing electric car.
Right.
These things are set up to contrast with what Doc introduces later.
with what the crime he eventually unleashes on the world. Yeah. Back at Times Square, the boys spot a prostitute. She's standing outside of the Brisbee store wearing her Busy Bee hat, which is a strange choice for a prostitute. Brisbee is Disney in this world, and Busy Bee is kind of like the Mickey Mouse. And that's what makes the kids interested.
And that gets it's this actually check this out, this comparison. Busy Bee and the Venture Brothers is the happy little elves to the Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
Like something that was omnipresent in the first season, like gets a highlight and then goes away forever.
Yeah. No, that's a good connection.
Because there's so much Busy Bee stuff in the background of this, and that makes sense for Times Square, like tons of Disney stuff, Disney store.
Yep.
But it just really, as part of the pitch book, it really felt like it was going to be part of the series, when in fact it is, an episode.
Yeah.
A little bit later. But they do that, this kind of hackney joke, which I always have. I enjoy when anyone does it. The Simpsons does it, where she's like, "You kids looking for fun?" And like, we're always looking for fun and adventure, and she takes them back to her Busy Beehive. We get another action scene where Brock tracks down the thieves and just beats the crap out of them and takes the watch back. Doesn't ask them questions where the boys might be. This is purely punitive.
Yes, he doesn't just beat them up; he throws them out the window and then drops their couch on them.
Yeah. His berserker rage.
Yeah, they would survive. They actually make an appearance at the end of season 1, so that is fun. So we cut back to the UN. The ambassador introduces Dr. Venture, not by saying like his name first, but he says, "Oh, Jonas Venture, our next guest's father, is we all know him around here," kind of setting up that Rusty's kind of a legacy case. He goes up and gives his speech about mankind's desire to build, et cetera, on and on. He brings up this model city and then activates his device. It's this big, ominous-looking death ray kind of thing that he calls the U-ray.
Like what sounds like Rue. It's like Pig Latin.
Yeah.
For Rue. I was trying to figure out why this is called the U-ray.
I have no idea.
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
But it melts the city in a really shoddy piece of animation that they really struggled with.
Yes.
This was originally supposed to blow up the city, but this was also changed for 9/11.
Right. It was originally a model of New York, but then it became like they pulled an asset directly from Johnny Quest because at this point they still had access to those assets and rights as part of the I guess Cartoon Network kind of connection that they had. Really weird. And everybody's horrified. Like, why would you bring a weapon to a peace conference? And Rusty's like, no, like that's not what it is at all.
Yeah, it has limitless uses. And there's a really, he's like, well, he says, anything can be used as a weapon. And the ambassador says, well, what about Dr. Olafson's Hello Helmet? And I love Dr. Olafson's Hello Helmet. I really wish we got a chance to see the Hello Helmet.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, all it is a helmet that says hello.
Just in different languages.
Yeah. Like, hola. Guten Tag. I love Dr. Olafson's Hello Helmet. And just that delivery with such indignance is very fun.
Yep. I suppose if it ever fell into the wrong hands, it could be modified and made into a weapon after a fashion.
Well, the weird thing is that when later in the episode, when Colonel Manhour shows up and actually wants it as a weapon, Rusty seems surprised.
Yeah.
Whereas this is his whole thing.
Right.
In the future, like Rusty is less dumb as the series goes on as well.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think he's being genuine saying that like, oh, he didn't think it would be a weapon, but it didn't feel like it was his plan to get this in front of Colonel Manhour's.
Right. Yeah.
So
Rusty has no compunction about being an arms dealer, essentially.
Yeah. So Senzuri puts his hood up and goes for the weapon. We cut over to the boys, and the Monarch spies them going into the hooker's palace and says something like they're about to experience the fleshy cheek of the mommy and daddy dance.
Yep.
Which I like that a lot. And then the prostitute says, like, I charge $10 for the Gilded Lily, 20 for the Roman holiday, 50 for the old walrus and the carpenter, and for 75 you can sleigh ride down Kilimanjaro. They had come up with tons of these sex acts, and these were the ones that got in.
Right.
There were ones that were filthier than this.
They had to just constantly they would send a list and say, no, you can't do that one. They just had to just keep on replacing the ones that were deemed a little bit too racy. Although Roman holiday, that sounds really that sounds really unsavory to me.
It's like vomit play, right?
Maybe
that's my, because a Roman shower is vomiting in terms of sex.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I'm not making that up. Like that's what you call it if you vomit on somebody for sexual pleasure.
I could intuit that, but I've never heard it called a Roman shower.
Yeah, I knew one guy who claimed to have done that, and I didn't believe him. So so it could be one of those like semi-fictional.
Oh, like a Blunken.
Things.
Yeah.
Maybe a semi-fictional Blunken situation. Also, the sleigh ride down Kilimanjaro is implied to be anal. She pats her butt.
Yep.
They cut another anal sex joke out of the at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
So she says she'll start with the big one. Hank comes up, and then there's actually a good cut here where they're both running out, and Hank screams like, "She tried to touch me where I make sissy."
Yeah. So,
which isn't a phrase or anything like that, but
no, it's not a thing at all. But yeah, they finally understand once the grown woman tries to touch the teenager. Yeah. As
she attempts to statutorily rape young Hank Venture
for money,
is how we might say it, in exchange for money. Yeah, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Later they would do stuff with the boys' burgeoning sexuality that is much better.
Yes.
Than them accidentally getting statutorily raped by a busy bee prostitute.
Right. So they're fleeing. The Monarch goes to chase them, but he runs smack into Brock like he's a brick wall. This wouldn't be resolved until the post credits in a very funny way. But
they do show him putting his thumbs into the Monarch's eye.
Oh shit!
In keyframe that's like really scary to me. And they cut away. He's jamming his thumbs into the Monarch's eyes, and then just cuts away.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening because I mean Brock has straight up killed every other person he's gone rage on. Yeah.
Well, and one of those things, like, I really hope to die without somebody jamming their thumbs into my eye.
Any eye like play, that.
Yeah, I like any ocular holidays or ocular showers. Yeah. I think about sticking my thumb into eyes a lot if I was ever really in a fight and I was scared for my life.
Yeah,
I was like, why does no one ever do that? Because it just feels like nobody's gonna push through that. You don't just like push through the pain of somebody's thumb in your eye.
No.
And maybe you do. Maybe these people just have a commanding amount of sack and they can do that. But I could not. I think if somebody put their thumbs in my eye, it would be like time to call truce.
I think it depends on the person. Also, like the eye is one of those things. It's a little bit like, what is it? The eggshell law. to a certain degree. Like it could either be like way more fragile than you think, or it could be way tougher than you think, and you are not responsible if it is more fragile than you expected it to be. So like I don't imagine that an eye will pop immediately. Like that's not realistic, but it's also exactly what I think might happen if I go for it, or more realistically if somebody goes for mine.
Yeah. Well, and even if it didn't pop immediately, it would just hurt like a motherfucker.
Oh yeah.
Like you get all that eye milk all over your thumbs. Like I'm not saying it's something I want to do. It's just something that I think like
it's
if somebody were really going for me,
it's something you think that you would have the wherewithal to do if you had to go pro ice in a hard situation. Yeah.
The other thing I think about is biting off a nose.
Yeah.
Like I think that like if somebody were really threatening my life, like I got, like somebody was on top of me and they were like had a knife or something. Like I like to think that I would have the presence of mind to go berserk and stick my thumb in their eyes and bite off their nose.
Yeah.
Just do things that will stop the fight.
Yes.
Yeah. So the message here to Orb listeners is don't fuck with me.
No, not at all. Not with Gary specifically. I
may seem like a mild-mannered, overweight 40-year-old podcaster, but in fact, I am Brock Sampson in this shit when it comes down to it, and my mouth and thumbs are ready.
Yeah, in fact, if you run into me on the street, I'm the opposite. I'm fine. Just come up. You probably just you take my lunch money, give me noogies.
You had special glasses built to make people's thumbs more comfortable when they go in your eyes, like padded,
sweet silky
gel.
velvet. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do this all day.
Yeah. Oh man,
your teeth are all corked.
It's a warning call.
So the boys run away and they see the U-nited Nations. They get there to check in with Dad, and they get in just in time to see Pete and Billy make fun of Doc.
Good going there, Dr. Venture.
And he fires back with a cardboard cutout of "Where does rain come from?" It was not that inspiring, which is a great joke in this episode. That's really good.
The science fair.
I love conjectural technology. So
that's one of my favorite things.
Where does rain come from?
So they're going to pack up the Ure. And this is where the Otaku Senzuri storyline terminates. They find him
climaxes.
Climaxes, yes. I specifically avoided saying that. They find
ejaculates, please.
This is where the storyline comes. No, they find Senzuri masturbating alongside it. The guards catch them. I love the ambassador. First he says, "Ooh, the suspicious Asian man," but then and then also here he says, "Well, with all these foreigners around, someone was bound to steal it." The idea that an ambassador at the UN would be this xenophobic is very funny to me.
Well, and clearly English as a second language, with very thick accent and such. An army general shows up kind of out of nowhere. This is the first appearance of Colonel Man-Hours or General Man-Hours. Great name. Who mentions that he's like, no, he wasn't trying to steal it. Senzuri is a technology fetishist. He was masturbating to it. And then he's like, it's neat. This device is neat. And Dr. Venture is like, really? You think it's neat?
Validation?
Yeah. He and General Man-Hours orders 100 of them. He's like, I don't know what the army will do with them, but I accept. Again, kind of showing this weird naivete that later would be, more direct.
Yeah, that kind of naivete cannot exist alongside his cynicism. Yeah.
Yes. So we get the boys say, "Go Team Venture." We get a final little scene with Brock, where he is with the prostitute. And she's like, that was good, big guy. You still have $300 left. That can buy a lot. And he goes, I know, I'm going to want change. Which I think is a really good joke. The original joke was, I know, turnover, which again, just kind of going for that low hanging anal sex. Joke.
It's a longer walk what they ended up doing, and it was worth taking.
Yeah. Getting change from a prostitute is very funny.
Yes.
For that. So then we get the credits, and we get our post-credit scene. The Venture Brothers always has a post-credit scene.
And be sure to watch them. If you're watching the series on Hulu or another streaming service, oftentimes they will try to skip credits to get you to the next episode. Pro tip is don't let that happen. Like interrupt that so you can see these, because oftentimes plot important stuff will happen. And even if it's not plot important, there's often very good jokes that are done in these, such as this. The Monarch is in the hospital, and the doctor expresses amazement that he even survived. He's like, "Oh, we pumped that thing out of your stomach." Brock fed the Monarch his own wings.
Yeah. The Monarch says, "Don't throw those out." He's going to reuse them.
His own wings that he needed to buy like a plane seat for because they're so big.
He loves them.
Yep.
And that's the end of the pilot.
Yep.
I don't have any other real notes for it. It does some good work, but it is not what it needs to be yet.
Yes.
Sadly.
We talked about the problems for the beginning here, but I want to underline that like there is a lot that is present here that would ultimately become pretty core to the show, even down to just like the dynamic between the two Venture Brothers. Like, oh, I'm the smart one. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And even if that's at 80% now or 70%, like it's in the right direction, without getting there yet. So like, it's kind of fun to see them point a floodlight towards something that would later become like a laser point, a laser pointer level of focus.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but there aren't a lot of good jokes in it. There are some good jokes. It feels really long, to me. And that bums me out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to the real show.
Yes. Same.
Yeah. Any other production notes or anything like that?
Not that I found. I sprinkled them in as opposed to bunching them up.
Yeah. I can't think of any. There's nothing in my notes I missed. So I think that's probably covers the terrible secret of Turtle Bay.
Yeah.
I am really looking forward to getting to the next episode, which I like a lot.
Same. The jump in quality in every axis is remarkable.
Yeah. Really impressive.
Yep.
So
cool.
So if you like this show, you can support us on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, we'd really appreciate it. You can also leave ratings or reviews wherever you find podcasts. So Podcast Addict or Apple Podcast. Yep. That would be great.
Very helpful, especially this early on. What happens with something like specifically on Apple Podcasts is things will get ranked higher if they get a velocity of interactions. So like if a new show with a bunch of reviews helps us rise to the top of the list and will help expose more people to the show. And this is, we only ever grow a show by word of mouth. So you can either do that or you can tell friends, talk about the show on social media. All of that is important stuff to do with a show as young, with a show as baby as this one.
Yeah, this is not quite the pilot of this show, but everything will come together even more. So Cole and I's dynamic will develop.
You think there's a lot there? You think there's a lot further for that to go?
Yeah. Okay. Decade 2, man.
Okay.
I'm telling you. But yeah, we appreciate you for listening. And until next time, go Team Venture.